This meeting is being recorded.
Mr. Graham,
Caleb, how you doing, sir?
good, good. Thank you very much. I have been looking forward to this conversation. Appreciate you making some time.
Likewise. I can't believe it's been this long before we got to dive into this.
Cool. So I know we're going to keep this kind of focused and to the point. When I think about the questions that I'm most interested in hearing from people that I'm really interested in seeing what they're building, especially right now with so many things changing, it is kind of three things. One is, what are you building? Two is, who does it help? And then the third is, why does it matter? What's the
Hmm.
point? You know, so I would love to hear from those things if we can sort of get to those points. But I would also just love to hear you share a little bit, just so some people have some context about some of the stuff that you've built.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those questions, and I have two very different answers because I got one deeply in the AI world and one deeply in the human community side of the world. But for myself, I've been a serial entrepreneur my entire life. Been building companies for coming on 27 years now. Been very fortunate to build and exit a number of companies. Started out in the virtual currency space before anyone called it that. We sold items from online video games in the early 2000s on eBay. I built and scaled a game development company called Rocket Owl to over 1 million users on Facebook. Exited that company to a small private equity group. Spent years doing early stage investing in B2B SaaS companies, co-founded a SaaS company in the pet industry, doing business management tools for the pet business. Think dog walkers, daycares, groomers. Scaled that to about 5 million customers globally. Spent the last decade building custom software, doing everything from telemedicine and mobile health solutions to augmented reality tools for some of the biggest entertainment brands on the planet. And along the way, been fortunate to invest in a number of companies, sit on a number of boards for high growth venture backed SaaS companies. And then 2.5 years ago, started building a global community of founders called FounderLink, where we now have almost 2,000 founders from around the world building together, sharing, and growing.
Awesome.
That's my world.
Cool. And you mentioned two things that you're kind of building right now. One's in the AI world,
Yeah.
and one is in the the gray intelligence, gray matter world. Um, yeah, let's hear about them.
Yeah, so the first one I actually partnered up with a really good friend of mine, Dan Martell, and we're building a platform called Apex, building in agentic orchestration for small business. So looking at making kind of the cutting edge of AI tooling accessible for everyday companies between kind of 1 million and 50 million in revenue. I think there's an infinite number of things that AI can be used for right now, and there are massive competitive advantages for the companies that are deep in the space. But we're seeing the gap between those that are kind of deeply technical and deeply embedded, and those that are not getting wider and wider. And so, Apex is kind of an approach to bring that technology into the hands of kind of your everyday non-software company that's looking to build scale rapidly. So having a ton of fun in that ecosystem. We're also working very close together on a whole portfolio of AI companies. And then on the gray matter side of the world, we're building community. We're trying to help people navigate the world of entrepreneurship through FounderLink, through community, through in-person events, and personally kind of set on a mission about 2 years ago to try and help 1,000 founders hit their first million in revenue, and that's become a cause very near and dear to my heart. I've been fortunate to build a lot of eight-figure companies. I've never built or kind of headed up a unicorn company. And so a little bit of the vision with FounderLink is to try and create a unicorn community and helping 1,000 people get to their first million and create $1 billion of economic activity globally, which I think would be a pretty fucking cool thing to accomplish.
Hmm. Yeah, I was chewing on, I think, a philosophical idea similar to that. I was thinking, I shared with you before a little bit of what Sarah and I have talked about with like kind of recharge retreats, that sort of thing, and shared some of that. And I was like, man, what is a sizable goal? Like, what would be something at the end of my life I'd look and be like, oh, we got this many of those. And I was
Yeah.
thinking about that number, and I thought, at a certain point, like once you've dialed it, you've built the thing, it's helping people, you're stewarding it, right? You're like getting to solve pretty important problems that have a meaningful impact on people's lives. And you've done it kind of at a scale that you're sort of, it's made you flex a bit. I don't mean for other people. I mean, it's forced you almost like doing the reps. It's like in your body, it's like, oh, I feel active. I feel like, life was, let me train hard, But I'm like,
Yeah.
man, there's a certain number where if I had 1,000 of these, or I had 100 of these, or I had 10 of these, like, I'm like, what is the difference? Because a certain number of zeros in your own balance sheet become zeros.
Yeah.
And versus, I was like, man, if you open that up and if you helped more people that are stewarding land and other things to do the same thing, I'm like, what is the actual difference? Like, let's just assume scenario one, let's say there's 1,000 of them and
Yeah.
you own 100 of them or 10 of them
Yeah.
or whatever it is compared to that 1,000 going and thriving. And I was like, man, it totally shifted the way I looked at it. So your idea of, getting to that unicorn point by actually helping empower others, I think is in that line, and I have real respect for that. So,
Likewise, dude. And I think like part of why I'm excited to dive into some of the conversations today is like the vision you and Sarah have for some of the retreat stuff you guys have talked about, like creating those spaces. I think that's going to be one of the biggest needs and industries over the next 10 to 20 years, right? Like we're seeing, at least at the community level, I'm seeing an extreme push on both ends of the spectrum right now. We have the like hyper AI enabled, hyper fast moving, everything's going crazier than it's ever been before companies and founders. The ones that are optimizing to minimize the amount of sleep so they never lose out on time, like orchestrating agents. And then we have this huge push in the community for people craving, seeking out, and investing in person experience, retreats, stillness, mindfulness, a whole world of just trying to find balance and connection in a world that seems to be becoming more and more dominated by artificial interactions.
mhm. Yeah, it's funny because even a lot of the digital spaces that became our sort of third spaces have become so optimized for an
Yeah.
attention hacking that they're not really as social as they once were.
No.
You mentioned the founder dinners. So I've been to two of them, and both times I remember coming away and you feel like, I don't know how to explain necessarily. Maybe, they say there's neurons all through your body and other parts or whatever. But when you're in someone else's, I know it sounds abstract, but when you're in someone else's like field of being,
Yeah.
the energy you get off people, whatever, just they're excellent. I think if I
Thank you.
recall correctly, I think Dan was a bit of a catalyst to you to like encourage you to do these as you're in different cities and whatnot. But
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. It's not- the concept of founder dinners is something I've been doing very casually for probably 15 years. And a lot of it came from like reading Never Eat Alone
hmm,
20 plus years ago and always always recognizing that some of the best connections came over food. And no matter how unique the industry or different the path or different the stage, there's something like deeply human about connecting over a meal, right? Like
hmm,
you can sit down at a table with people worth tens of billions and people are on day one of their journey and everyone's kind of there somewhat equalized in a lot of ways. And so that's always been very powerful. And it was Dan that gave me a bit of a push on just formalize it and make it a repeatable thing and just chatting with friends too of like the more and more I got frustrated with like attending events and just being like, this is not the crowd or the energy or the thing I want or just hearing the 17th sponsor talk at whatever event and it was like well let's go build the rooms I wish I could have been in 20 years ago and do it in a way that people are excited to show up and share. And we've been very fortunate. I think we're coming up on 40 that we've hosted now with incredible people all over the world. And it's been fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I was at a conference this past week down in the States. And one of the things when I keep getting into big rooms, where you're dealing with like 100 or more people, the thing I've been finding is like, I'm sitting in the hotel after and I'm thinking, what are the things that the latest versions of technology can help us to do that we were not able to do before? There's that idea of like you know, older term, but a new wineskin, old wineskin. Back in the day when they would make wine, you take a animal skin and you fill it with
Hmm.
wine. It ferments and expands, and then the wine's in there. But if you take a used wineskin and put new wine in it, it'll ferment and break it, like it cracks it, because it expands and it's already expanded. And so both end up being lost, the juice and then the actual wineskin. And so the idea is that you put new wine in a new wineskin. And so I would say, like, to me, the analogy as I think of it, and I think of that analogy a lot, is the new wine is like the people, the energy, the activity, what people are looking for. And we are certainly changing in our expectations alongside of what's happening technologically. But the wine skin is this container. Like, what container can we use that will adequately serve what's happening to be able to give it a spot to like do its thing, adjust so that it's useful? And I feel like for these larger conference like groups, I'm like, man, you almost need a deeper way to synthesize, understand deeply where people are coming from, and then what they need in
Yeah.
advance of it. Almost as, and I don't know where if Apex functions as like a chief of staff or how it's being positioned or you're finding market fit, but it almost makes me feel like all of our Apex versions need to sort of like meet in advance,
And say
you
have
know?
have all the agents discuss amongst each other and do
Yeah,
the pairing, right?
yeah.
So it's funny. I think like you mentioned kind of what the tooling is doing, and we're looking at it very much from the lens of the layer today is agents doing roles like chief of staff or email triage or marketing, like but where we're looking in the industry that's very interesting and compelling in general is how do you deploy agents at scale? Assuming one platform is not going to win every single vertical, how do you create the platform where you can deploy all of the different vertical tools that come out over the next few years from one centralized place and do that orchestration yourself? So it's less about betting on building the perfect chief of staff and more about if you build the perfect chief of staff and someone else builds the perfect finance backend and someone else builds the perfect bookkeeper and someone else builds the perfect CS tooling, what is currently the thing that binds them all together and gives you kind of oversight, control, and deployment ability
Hmm.
between them. And I think that's a really, really interesting space to be looking at. And now it's also interesting when you talk about like those big rooms, right? I had this experience last year. I went to Web Summit in Lisbon for the first time, and that was a really interesting experience because I think there were 85,000 attendees, and
It's a
trying to
city.
go from, I say that is a decent sized small city
Hmm.
and all in one conference over a few days. And you have to take that and try and create meaningful connection. And what I've always found is the bigger the event, the more I try and do kind of curation in small groups, the less I am called to or compelled to like walk the floor and go meet 500 people in an hour.
Hmm.
I'm more about how do I create situations, create rooms, activities that will kind of filter out people that are going to have similar interests or similar goals, and then do connection in the rooms of like 20 to 40. And I find that far more meaningful. I also spend most of my time at conferences trying to connect other people. Every time I meet someone new, my first goal is connect them to two or three other people either at the conference or in my ecosystem and just do that kind of relentlessly for the entire conference. And it's incredible the kind of network effect you get to walk away from that event with.
Hmm. I'm curious to know what this era is like for you building. You mentioned some of the people you're building with Apex and whatnot. Just genuinely, like I kind of wonder what the valley was like back in the dot-com boom. I was just sort of, curious back then. I think I'm fresh out of high school. And you just kind of wonder, you sort of hear this napkin writing era of like, ideas and
Oh
we
yeah.
certainly see the velocity of things. I don't know if it was Mark, is it Anderson or someone who was talking about like a lot of people, you know, down there working and they're just like, I think he called them like AI vampires almost like they're just the extreme for some is you don't want to sleep, while
Yep.
your agents are going, you don't want to, you mentioned optimizing sleep based on like output so you don't have some of that. But I don't know if I'm so much interested in the extreme. I've seen some of the extreme,
Yeah.
but then what is maybe the healthy stride you're seeing, or
Yeah.
what are you seeing?
So what's really interesting is those of us deeply embedded in the AI world, right? I think it's so easy to forget when you are inside of the bubble and not remember that you are inside of the bubble, right? Like I've had a couple of companies that I work with that have been in San Francisco for the last little while. And like if you talk to them and their perception of the world inside of SF, every mom and pop corner store on the planet has an agentic checkout flow and is doing deep analysis on their security footage to optimize product placement and buyer trends and everything else. And it's like, and there's this like thesis that AI has permeated every layer of every possible opportunity in every business everywhere. And you get one step outside of that bubble and recognize that the vast majority of people are like, I talk to ChatGPT. It's kind of like Google.
Hmm.
And keeping some of that level of context and recognizing how big the opportunity still is to bring new people into the AI world, to recognize what parts of companies and what parts of commerce and business and day-to-day life will be meaningfully impacted by AI versus parts that are just going to continue to be human things. I had this chat with a friend not that long ago who was like, I think this is the last era of business, and I think this is the last time like companies are going to scale in these ways. And a lot of my feedback was like, I think the world does change, but I also hold that history has shown us that humans will always find human problems to have with other humans. So there's always going to be a world for curating interaction, for curating experiences, for curating ways of interacting. I think software changes how some of the mechanics happen. It changes how certain goods and services move around. But at the end of the day, people still deal with people, right? And AI is another tool in that stack that changes the volume of output and shifts where the value and work is. Um, but I think there's still going to be lots of opportunity to do human things, which I'm very, very, very excited about. And it's also why like my current thesis of where my time and energy is going is to like one is on the extreme end of AI and hypergrowth companies, and the other is human connection and people events. I was like, I'm
Hmm.
hedging on both sides of this. I want to be on the frontier of the technology. I also want to have a place where people connect and share and have deeply human conversations on what's working, what's stressful, what's not, et cetera.
It's funny. So back, I want to say a year and a half, 2 years ago, I had first named the YouTube channel that I post these on right now, which is currently what we need to grow, which I think is a little bit of a double entendre,
I love it.
but prior to that was digits and dirt, and it's funny because to me it was in like 3 words, it's the epicenter of what's happening. It's like the thesis where you have this digital world where you need proficiency and understanding in, and then you've got this organic, like the planet that we're made of, the soil, the sand, the sun, the like you've got these two. And for a while I've thought of the almost the need to be ambidextrous or like bilingual and have, and thinking about the next generation, um, of like what will it be like for them? What skills to be learning, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a beautiful, I think and my hope and I guess prayer is like that humanity will find this balance to recognize that stewarding what we have of like that seems maybe really traditional and like your 1 degree in contact with like, well, nature. It's
Yeah. I
not
love the
AI.
backdrop, by the way.
Um, and you're also like inquisitive and exploring and like learning and like finding ways to like use technology, which is like quartz and rare earth minerals and intention and information and signal and energy, as well to like look and say, hey, what problems can we
Yeah.
solve? And
Oh, it's so funny. I'm very fortunate I get to spend time with lots of different founders. And I have a good friend here in Vancouver. His name's Adam. He runs a rock business called Rebel Rock and Gem, I think. And like he literally spends 90% of his life traveling around the world in mines and rock shows and curating, sourcing, cutting, managing massive inventory of rocks and gems and everything. And we have really interesting chats about like what drives you and what speaks to you and what role does AI play in your business. And like they're looking at how to scale and grow and a lot of their business and a lot of his reason for building is like, I like rocks. I like it when
mm,
other people like rocks.
mm,
I help people find cool rocks. And like these like 9 foot tall amethyst
mm,
structures and like fossils and like the most extreme crazy stuff in the world. And it's so incredible to me that people can build at every end of the spectrum, right? That there's opportunity in everything if you find the people with the energy and the connection to what they're doing, right? You can build a meaningful, incredible company that has impact on lots and lots and lots of people, bringing joy, bringing peace, bringing prosperity, whatever it is, in every possible kind of walk of life, from the like latest and greatest AI tooling that's helping businesses scale in ways that they never thought they could. Like we've seen so many companies come through with different AI products and then get customer testimonies like because of new agentic tooling, people got like tens of hours back in their week and they're seeing their kids more and they like stepped away for a little while. They're no longer drowning in email or like they're finally optimizing ads in ways they didn't understand they could and now they get customers. Like AI is changing the world, but like there's also parts of the world where it's like you just dig up rocks and bring joy to
mm,
people's lives, right? Like there's so many incredible ways humans build and create value for each other.
mm. It's funny here, just to my left, it goes onto Crown land in a really beautiful area that's near Provincial Park. But we have seen just such amazing like smoky quartz, and with my young
Ah,
young kids like going and finding it in the raw. Like I remember the first time at a kind of gem and mineral show or a store, and one of the people were talking about how, oh, I prefer to go and find the stones in nature, like rock hounding. And I was like, it had never occurred to me that you could do that. So, and then it's just been so neat. There's a little video, I think it's on my Instagram, of seeing my son pull out, like find and then unearth this big piece of like quartz, smoky quartz or whatever, which is really
oh,
neat.
cool.
But just, Graham, if in the last couple of minutes, can
Yeah.
you please just send just a clear shot of like who would Apex be for in its current version? And so people, it can be on their radar right now. I think there's like a kind of a wait list or whatnot.
That's
You
it.
guys are good.
There's a strong wait list, and I think I don't want to. I think if you're looking at the future of agentic tooling in business, you need to be paying attention to that space. It's going to be amazing. There's an early cohort in. There's more customers coming into the space every week, and we are significantly expanding the team there to continue trying to keep up with the demand, which pretty excited to see.
Sweet. And then for
Yeah.
Founder Link, for the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah. So for honestly, for everything Founderlink, for growth, for content that we're building, for companies we're investing in, if you're looking for support, founderlink.com, grahambarlow.com, or Graham Barlow on any and all of the socials. I absolutely love connecting with founders. The community is growing. We're looking at new community champions in every major city across Canada, a number in the US. We're dramatically ramping up events and activities over the remainder of 2026 into 27. And I'm also always looking for founders to work with. absolutely love helping people on the path to their first million, their first 10 million. We've got an incredible community that's growing and thriving there.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Caleb, thank
I'm gonna
you.
drop the recording and then it'll just give us like a minute to chat.